Hi everyone, I'm Beck. This is my cat Diego. He's not what I'm talking about though. I'm going to be running you through this video of my teaching stance and my pedagogical approach to teaching. I'll be talking about some teaching examples, tying it in with the theorists that have helped influence me through the years and into the future, and tying it in also with the AITSL standards. So now that I've given you a complete tour of my very spacious apartment, here's the examples. Hope you enjoy. Earlier on this year, whilst on placement, I taught my preps a lesson on capacity. In the week prior to this lesson, I asked my students to bring in containers, so plastic containers, empty ice cream containers, margarine containers. I did request that we tried to have a wide range of different sizes, so big ones, small ones, wide, tall, all different shapes. I didn't tell them why I wanted them to bring in the containers, so this really built excitement within the classroom and for the students about what Miss Newman was planning for them. The aim of this lesson was to help address one of the Victorian curriculum points for the foundation level, which was use direct and indirect comparisons to decide which is longer, heavier, or holds more, and explain reasoning in everyday language. So I really focused on the language around capacity. This container holds more than this container because, or this holds less, this holds the same, really looking at those sort of 3 points just to keep it simple for the preps. Whilst out in the sandpit, students were broken up into 4 groups. Each group was given some containers and they were to fill them up with sand and then try and order these containers from either biggest to smallest and also into what holds the most sand and to what holds the least sand. So this was some language that we were discussing with the students just to help build their understanding of capacity and what it means, to hold something. This activity really kept students within their zone of proximal development. I didn't really find that I had any students who appeared to be bored. It was a real hands-on lesson, constructivist approach to teaching, and I didn't have then any students where it was too hard for them. Because it was in the sandpit, they were able to fill it up, they were able to construct their own understandings of capacity. So this helps bring me on to my next point. This lesson I feel really catered for AITSL Standard 4.1, which was supporting student participation. So strategies to support inclusive student participation and engagement in classroom activities. Also fostering those positive interactions from students. Whilst they were in the sandpit, they had so much fun. They each had their own containers and were comparing them to other students' containers. Which one holds more, which one holds less. They were all definitely engaged and more than willing to participate. The next lesson I'll be talking about was part of a science unit that I had planned for grade 5-6 students. This unit was on electricity and I taught every Friday for over 6 weeks. This particular lesson was teaching the students about electrical circuits. In the Victorian curriculum for Level 6 Science, it does state that we need to teach students to understand energy from a variety of sources can be used to generate electricity. Electric circuits enable this energy to be transferred to another place and then to be transformed into another form of energy. In the beginning of the lesson, we wanted students to develop their understandings of what an electric circuit was and the components involved. In the second part of the lesson, we took the group of students outside and used role play. So they were to create an electrical circuit with themselves. We had students, one was the switch, one was the battery, and one was the light bulb. We had the other students travelling around as electrons, creating positive and negative flows. And then the student who was the light bulb would put their hands up in the air to show that the light bulb had lit up. When planning this science unit on electricity, I adopted Bandura's social learning theory. So cognitive processes taking place in a social context. So looking at the observational learning, the modelling, which was done by myself and the students, and the verbal instructions. I also adopted the 5E model when planning this unit. So the engage, explore, explain, elaborate and evaluate. This was really useful when planning the activities in each lesson. I feel I addressed AITSL Standard 2.1, content and teaching strategies of the teaching area. So demonstrating knowledge and understanding of concepts, substance and structure of the content and teaching strategies of the teaching area. Implementing engaging learning. I felt this was done by the role play and the modelling of what an electric circuit is, and the research-based learning. So I myself needed to know what an electric circuit was and all the different components involved and their importance to be able to teach it to the students. The third and final lesson is one that I taught whilst on placement in a grade 1 classroom. Under what was AusVals at the time, students needed to recognise, describe and order Australian coins according to their value, which is actually still the same under the Victorian curriculum now. In the first lesson, students were provided with these sheets and asked to cut and paste coins in what they thought was the correct order. A lot of students listed the 50-cent coin as being the most valuable due to it being the largest of the Australian coins. From this activity, I was able to assess students' understanding and knowledge of coins to then sort them into the appropriate leveled groups for lesson 2, which I'll go on to. So for the second lesson, now that I knew what knowledge students had, I was able to order them into their groups. The base group was still just working on students who still didn't quite have that solid understanding of the value of the Australian coins. So once they were able to complete that and I could tick off that the curriculum point had been met, they could move on to the next activity. There were 4 activities, and at the end of the lesson all students were at that 4th activity working as a whole group class on the floor, giving each other different coins, asking for change, making up values with certain coins, so using 2 50-cent coins to make up $1 or 2 20s and a 10-cent coin to make up the 50-cent piece. Through planning these 2 numeracy lessons, I met AITSL Standard 3.2, Plan, Structure and Sequence Learning Programs. So I was able to plan lesson sequences using the knowledge of student learning. So I understood how they were learning and what levels they were all up to from my assessments after lesson 1. I used the content and effective teaching strategies to form those groups and the activities that would be in lesson 2, which then engaged students and promoted their learning. Thank you for your time, and I hope you enjoyed watching my video on my teaching approach.